Well, I'm not in my normal setup, so I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Because, I usually have my, fancy podcast mic and my headphones, and I'm in a foreign location without my equipment. So it
Mm,
is what it is.
sounds pretty good.
This has been the July freeloading tour. That's what we've been doing. Our besties have a guest room and our closet's full of our stuff. So it's basically our house.
The Hollow Buddy. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I am Kristen Zeman, and I am here with my beautiful co-host, Sylvia Moyer. We are former police chiefs, but the Hollow Bunny Podcast is not just for cops. This podcast is for anyone who has an interest in talking about life and leadership, and particularly the lessons we've learned about both.
Uh-huh.
So, but to recap, we've been gone for a while, Sil. What's been going on?
We haven't been really gone, KZ. We've been taking a little pause. We've been out exploring the world, investing in ourselves, doing work. And so we just took a little vacay from the podcast and folks are saying, "Hey, when are you jumping back on the Hollow Bunny podcast kind of gig?" So, what's been going on? How detailed do you want to be about what's been going on? You think our
Well,
listeners can handle it?
I love what you said, because we had made this conscious decision to hit the pause button. And for me, it was after 2 years of solid travel, literally
Yeah.
almost weekly. And so we decided, as many know, I moved to Naples, Florida, but I've been traveling in and out of Naples, Florida. But we wanted to take the summer and head back to Illinois. And that's what we did. And part of that was just kind of recentering and, trying to decide, what I want to continue doing. But I
Yeah.
call this a freeloading tour. So we left Naples, Florida by
Say that
car.
again. Wait, wait,
It's
wait. Say it slowly so everybody can hear it. It's called the what tour?
it's my freeloading tour. Yeah.
Freeloading.
Yeah,
Okay.
so basically, we are just freeloading. We
Mm.
left Naples and we
Mm-hmm.
stopped at my daughter's and son-in-law's place in South Carolina. And then we went to North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina and freeloaded with friends at their lake house. And then we went to Ohio and
I have so
freeloaded with
many
friends
questions.
there. And yes, and then we came to Aurora and freeloaded. And then in the middle of all that, I had like 3 speaking engagements. So I
Uh-huh.
popped back. But that's what I've been doing, is freeloading.
So I don't see it as freeloading. I think you're just traveling around and sprinkling the little deliciousness of Kristen Zeman. I venture to guess that you're contributing in ways that may not have a monetary kind of transaction, but you're filling the souls of people. That's not freeloading. You're kind of you're evangelical.
Wow. So what you're saying is that the gift that I'm giving is just my effervescence. Is that what you're
You're,
saying? Okay,
yes,
wow.
your effervescence, your little
Wow.
bubbles everywhere. So I have 100 questions. Can I ask a few? Call on me.
Please do.
Okay. How many pair of underwear did you pack for the freeloading tour?
That
Like,
is a
how do you
great
pack
question.
for that?
That's a great question, especially since we took the car, right? So we had a little bit more. As it turns out, the plan
Okay.
was just to load the car with stuff, but what we ended up doing was underpacking. So the amount of shopping that we have done, because we're like, oh my gosh, we forgot X, Y, and Z. And underwear, I was solid though. I was good on underwear, but
Okay.
everything else, where it was a little cool when we got to Illinois, and I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of expecting it to be warm. So, we had to gauge temperature, but also I'm fine with going shopping and coming back with more clothes than I left with. So.
I think that's a solid plan.
Mhm.
So, have you been able to find kind of peace in the spaces that you're in? I mean, you're surrounded by your people, so you have some comfort, you have some excitement, some inspiration, some energy being around your people. Talk to us. Have you had time to be still? Because that
No.
was part of what you said, KZ. You said,
Yeah,
I'm
it was.
freeloading. I want to find my,
Yes.
come on.
Okay, so 2 things there, and this is great to unwrap, because I was faced with some great opportunities before I left Naples, and I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with those. And
Okay.
I won't go into them because two are still very much in motion, but it kind of came to this point where I just didn't know what to do. And so I decided I'm going to hit the pause button and I'm just going to try and you and I've talked about this so many times is when we just sit quietly and we listen to
S-
only ourselves. It's
Stillness is the key, sister.
great to get advice, right? I mean, but how many times do we tell each other, listen, get all the advice from everyone else, but at the end of the day, take all that advice and sit and be quiet
Mm,
and
mm,
close your
mm,
eyes and the answer will
mm.
come to you. So that was kind of part of the plan. And I did that for a minute, but then now I'm just with my tribe. My whole family and friends are all in Illinois. And so it's just
Hmm.
one thing after another. So I have to say, my intention was to have a little more of the quiet time, but that has not been the case. But my bunny is filled because these are my people, right? So it's like I'm
Sure.
kind of neglecting my stillness and silence, but I'm getting filled by others. And so the trip is coming to an end, and I'll be going back home in 4 short days. So I'll be able to get kind of back into my stillness groove. But it's
Yeah.
been amazing. People fill me up. That's just always been my thing. I get energized by people. So
Yeah. Okay. So, other questions. Can you fit all your shopping stuff in your car? You're gonna have to ship things home.
we're gonna need a bigger boat. Yeah, no, 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 no. I didn't buy that much. I didn't buy that much. It was no, just stuff that we had forgotten.
Okay.
So all great questions, still really great questions.
Good to know. What is the biggest surprise?
The biggest surprise is I think that I love that we moved because it was something that I think I needed to do. Born and raised in Aurora, and I needed a new landscape and I needed, a
Mm-hmm.
new challenge. But the biggest takeaway is that coming home always just feels so good.
Ooh.
It's just, it's no matter where you go, home is kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's home is people. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, and we've made so many great new connections. But I tell this to people who are so afraid of leaving their job, a relationship that no
Yeah.
longer serves them. And what I found is when you go, it really does kind of scrub the slate clean and you're able to see things with new eyes and build new relationships, but that doesn't take away from,
Right.
the other relationships that you've had. So I think my takeaway is that people are home and we are so
Yep.
fortunate to have all of our people come visit us all the time. So sometimes I don't even get a chance to miss them, which is amazing. But it's people that we call home. It's not a place.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
How about you? What's been your last 3 months besides just to the grind?
Yeah, I've been working stiff. Being a number two is a blessing, and it's also a reminder that a lot of the work churns here. So dusting off that writing, dusting off a lot of the things that we have to dust off when we have delegated for so long to build the competency of others, dusted that off, and I'm churning out work and connecting with people in the same way. And so for me, I've just really had to take pause and put my nose down and do the work. And then, I had to figure out what is my long term living sitch. So,
Mm,
in that same way, I had to figure out, I had to find the space. So, I should get keys to my new pad. I've got my main home, in big AZ, but I'm going to have a space here that I just bought in Marin County, and got great thread count sheets. I will make sure you're set. You have a landing spot. So
yeah.
this is the right place to just be and to serve and to kind of just let the future unfold, right?
Yeah, amazing, and that's great. So you were when you first took this job, that was one of the, the unknowns that you had is whether you're
Sure.
gonna buy a place, rent a place, but it sounds to me like you've made it home. So here we are again talking about, another place
Right.
that you've gone to. And I know California was originally your home, but this is still a new area for you and a new physical space. So how long did it take you to land on the place that you are now deciding to make your own?
Well, it took a long time because of the price of housing. You kidding me right now? Kidding me right now. So it took a minute. I think here's the commitment. We tell people all the time in our professional lives, don't let fear keep you stuck. We just touched on that. This seems to be really kind of a centerpiece for us as we're talking about how do we fill our bunny. So don't let fear kind of keep you rooted to where you shouldn't be, right? It's a really
Yeah.
important thing. So I came to Marin County by just not letting fear grip me and just seeing what unfolds. So it really didn't take that long because I was in equilibrium. So it didn't take me long to feel okay, but I needed to really finalize it by being settled in a space. So it took me a minute to find the right space, and I don't have the keys yet. So we
Yeah.
close escrow in a minute, and I'll make it a nice space that will enrich me. I think there's a big thing. Sometimes we tell people, you and I, sometimes you got to move out to move up,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And some folks come to us and they say, gosh, there's so much talent in my organization, or maybe I've outgrown it, or maybe I want something different. I want to see about being a fit somewhere else. And it's okay to say sometimes you have to move out to move up. And that
Mm,
might be in the hierarchy, it might move out of a relationship, move out of whatever in order to advance your life. And that may not be like move up in terms of rank, but it might be. It may not be something that we would traditionally think of advancement in terms of success, but success and moving up might just be getting a place of peace and equilibrium and maybe a little discomfort to then advance how adaptive we are in the environment that we're in. We talk
yeah.
about this a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure. And what you said was, something that I think holds people back. Of course, it sounds so trite to say that it's fear, but what I found is that it's that first step that causes the momentum, right? It's just one piece of movement, whether you walk, whether you crawl, or whether you run, it's just moving forward. And when you know, like you said, and this fits in relationships, our
Yep.
jobs, our
Yep.
cities, whatever it may be, if there's a thing where you're feeling like you've outgrown it or it no longer suits you, it no longer fits, your needs in that moment, the first step, because you can often sit there and become
Yeah.
completely paralyzed, but I don't know what to do. And the answer to that is movement. Just do something, one step in furtherance,
Yeah.
maybe take a visit to where you're thinking about
Oh,
going, all of that.
I gotta say though, sometimes the movement is the precursor to the movement is stillness. There is
Hmm.
no magic elixir for our soul. You're an elixir for any kind of sadness. You're like sunshine wrapped in human skin, which I freaking love.
Oh my God.
But
Let's hug
there
you through this.
sometimes it's you're what?
I just want to hug you through this.
Right?
Not the
So
same place, but I feel like we should be.
we should be. So sometimes stillness then takes us to action. This, you know what came up for me as you're talking about that is we have all kinds of folks that are like, okay, where am I in life? What am I doing in life? What am I doing here? Where's my meaning, my purpose? When I was going through a relationship struggle, my divorce, my friends said, look, Sil, let's go to Hawaii. So I went to Hawaii on New Year's Day through this whole thing, and I sat there and I got a piece of paper and I had 3 columns. Have I talked to you about this? My 3 column list of this is what I want a relationship to look like moving forward, if I ever have one again. My must haves, my nice to haves, and my hell no knockout, right?
Mhm.
I mean, things like must have, someone who's kind, who, who, well, there are a lot of must haves. Some are physical, some are emotional. Let's come on,
How
be
deep
real.
are you going into these must-haves?
Girl, girl, we could talk. I still have the list. It's actually right behind me. But then in
Mhm.
my knockout, like clowns. Ooh, it could be something as, as easy as clowns. I
Wait,
mean,
I'm sorry. Do you mean like an actual clown, or do you mean like someone who is funny, haha? Like, please, can you expound
oh,
on
oh,
that?
girl, funny haha is in the must-have. If you want to
Okay,
dress up as a clown and like role play, that's not going to happen anywhere in my
okay.
universe.
I have more
Um,
questions. I have more questions about this list. Okay,
we're
so
still. This is still an explicit podcast, right?
it is absolutely, it always will
Okay,
be.
good
Okay,
to
so my
know.
question is then when do you quietly assess these humans with whom you interact as potential partners, or is this like an assessment that you do quietly in your head, or do you pull out the list, day one and go, all right, listen, I have a series of questions to ask you. Are you
Number
do you
one. Do you
Yes,
play
all of
pickleball?
and you know that's a hard no for you.
A hard ass no. Oh
Oh,
God, we're having all these pickleballers. Like, she's
I
an
know.
asshole.
Don't tune
Okay,
out pickleballers. Don't tune out.
whatever.
One of us is a major pickleball fan. It's a cult. I'm in it, but yeah, don't
It
tune out.
is a total cult that started as rehab for like octogenarians going through some kind of
Mhm.
orthopedic angst. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. It
Uh-huh.
is a sport. It's the fastest growing sport in the United States. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, do you? But okay. So sometimes I take it out and we have a talk about it. But like, um, like if you walk like a dumb shit, we're gonna have a problem. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I'm a gait snob.
A gate snub. Okay, a
So
gate.
you could be like beautiful, and I go, oh my God, you're beautiful and you're smart and you're funny and you're amazing. And then you walk like a dumb shit. I'm like, we're breaking up.
Okay, so what if this scenario happens?
Okay,
What if
dude.
you are on a date
Okay.
and you arrive and
Yeah.
the person is already sitting?
Oh,
You do you make them get up and go retrieve something just to see their date, or do you go through dinner and wonder, gosh, I wonder if they walk like a dumb shit?
the latter. I wonder if you walk like a dumb shit. And then
Okay, so
if the date has to pee and they get up and go to the
mm,
bathroom and they would I'd be like, oh my, I would likely leave money and change my name and go.
uh-huh.
So
Okay.
that's why
Wow, I
dating,
didn't
like,
know this about you.
okay, it's a real thing. Like, you could be like the total package, and if you walk like a dumb shit, I'd be like, oh,
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so this is good. We've never discussed this before, so
right,
I'm glad to know. But I think everyone should have a list, though. Now, that is something that people might say, "Wow, that's kind of pretentious," but this is how we choose, people, right? I
sure,
mean, the people that we choose to spend our time, our future with, is,
word.
we go through these lists. Some are deal breakers, obviously, integrity and trustworthiness, but there are also a list of um, of very
Okay,
shallow things.
okay, yeah. So, for instance, why is it cute when my dog chews with his mouth open? I'm like, that's so cute. He's like, nah, nah. But if a
But
human did that, I'd be like, shh,
yeah,
shh, shh.
yeah, I know.
No, mm-mm.
Yeah. That was me,
So
by the way, not chewing food, but gum. My wife used to tell me that, I chew like a horse, and I didn't believe her because when you're
you're a
chewing,
pony, not a horse.
well, then, what happened was I was videotaping one of my kids' sporting events and I played it back, and all you could hear was me chewing like a horse. And I was, oh my gosh, you're so right. And she's like, but you didn't believe me when I told you. And I said, no, I had to get the evidence for myself. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, that's called marriage. So
Yeah.
I think there's a real interesting piece here that exercise can be done in a workplace. Like, what are the must-haves? It has to be a
Hmm.
place of high value and character and integrity and innovation and inclusivity
Hmm.
and collaboration, and that you actually then go to a granular level and say, what does that look like and sound like, right? In terms of
Yeah.
organizational climate,
Okay.
you can do a list like that,
What
um,
if
for
you
for
don't know?
work, for relationship, and I just think, well, we may not be rigidly adherent to kind of the middle, the nice to haves, and there may be some negotiation and uh, some consolation, I suppose, or you can kind of give a little bit, right? But there are some that are absolute deal breakers. Clowns, deal
Okay.
breaker.
Klein's deal breaker. Okay, you know what? So I'm going to use you on this topic as kind of my personal therapist. So, what would you say to a person who's trying to devise this list? Let's say for
Hmm.
a new opportunity.
Okay.
So, the opportunities that I have, one is very familiar to me. The other opportunity is foreign territory, something I have never done before, which also makes it a little bit enticing. Um, and so when think about this and how advice that you would give to those who are stuck or hitting the pause button and trying to decide between two rights, how would you go about the thing? Because I already know the thing that I've already done before, but the thing that is unfamiliar, aside from you just gotta, just go for it, right? But that's a complicated thing to do. So, what would you say to people that are like, I want to go do something different, but I'm also afraid because I don't have all the information. You don't know until you know, right?
Right. So, first question I'd ask depends on our relationship. You and I, it's like we have the bridge conversations, right?
Mhm.
You and I have a different kind of level, depth, and breadth of just being authentic and saying what it is. I would say, what scares the shit out of you the most?
Yeah.
What is
And
what
yeah.
is the worst thing that could happen?
Hmm.
What might you have to give up to get? And the most difficult things are when you have a series of rights.
For sure. And that I love that whole concept of what is the worst thing that could happen when I go and I speak. It's part of my presentation. I actually call it my litmus test for courage, and I invite all the audience members to think about something they are about to embark upon, and I ask them to sit with the worst possible thing that could happen if they choose that path. And I'm talking go to the worst, right? And once you sit with the worst thing that could possibly happen, you ask yourself part two of that, which is,
Hmm.
am I willing to accept that? And what I have found 99.9% of the time is the worst thing rarely ever happens. That's just fear, right? But when you embrace the worst thing, you also, if it does happen, but then there's another part to this. What's the best thing that
Thing
could
that could
happen?
happen.
So once
Yes.
you sit with the worst thing and you make peace with it, now focus on the goal. What is the end in mind? And if you pursue this through the fear, through the uncertainty, what is the best thing that could possibly happen? And then you sit with that, and that's what you focus on. Don't focus on the barriers, focus on the end in mind.
And what's genuinely coming up for me, right?
Mm,
Am I forcing myself to take a course of action with my head, or am I sitting in stillness and I'm letting just it unfold?
yeah.
And that I think is something where the stillness is the key. That we a lot of the great stoics really speak about this, that your truth really unfolds in these moments where you're not churning and thinking. So there's a process that I really encourage about kind of creating that list, and it's not a pro con list. I think it's far too nuanced for that.
Mm,
It's There's far too much texture to the human experience to have just pros and cons, right? And so to create kind of an evolving kind of emergence of things that come up is important. And so that's the encouragement that I give folks, right?
yeah. Well, in a pro and con list is, I mean, to me, that's garbage. And here's why is because you could have 20 things in the pro list and one thing in the con
Yep.
list, but the weighted one thing outweighs everything else. So for me, it's more like a matrix, if it's like, what is the most important to you? So everything can look right on paper, but then there's that one thing that is just heavier than all the others. And so because of that, you cannot proceed. So I think
Right.
that's what it comes down to is weighting, and I mean weight as in, the measurement weight.
I think our listeners want to kind of, you and I use this term, we want to unpack,
Mhm.
right? I think they'll want to know, how significant are these decisions that you're weighing? I mean, because and probably some are shaking their heads thinking, okay, girl's got an amazing landing spot, right? You've
Mhm.
got this safe landing, because really, what risk is there? You
Mhm.
you have published your book, Reimagining Blue. You have an incredible reputation for inserting yourself into this space to mitigate harm in active shooters and to really advance thinking and energize people to actually mitigate, to take action, to reduce harm, right? You speak, you get people to really think, and speaking is, it's not just speaking. We got to find another way to talk about that, because what you're doing is different than just speaking. So I want to call bullshit on that. Let's put a pin in that and come back to it. But they'll probably want to know. So what do you go through to really arrive at your decision making around this thing? And you might be positioned differently because you got the safe landing anyway, right?
For sure. Well, one of them, as I mentioned, the familiar. So
Yeah.
I love what I'm doing. I'll tell you what happened. I was speaking in Washington State, and I delivered my keynote. And afterwards, some lovely humans walked up. That's always my favorite part, is the conversations
Isn't
that happen.
it?
It's my favorite. And this gentleman said to me, "Man, I loved your presentation, but," and I was like, "Ooh, bring it. I love throw spears. I love a throw
Uh,
spears." And it wasn't what I was expecting. He said, "I really think you need to be back in an organization." And I
mhm.
said, "Oh my gosh, I so appreciate that." I said, "But I feel as though I'm making a greater impact by speaking." And he said, "Yeah, but the only problem with that is you go speak for an hour, you deliver a keynote, you drop all these nuggets, and you have to hope that people pick them up and apply them, right?" And he said, "And you don't get to see progress in an organization unless, of course, someone reaches back, follows up." And he got into my head, and I love and then, of course, the universe just unfolds, and then
It does.
an opportunity presented itself literally 3 days later. And I started thinking, and this is part of my process, is what do I love doing? It's part of that pro con kind of matrix. Is I love what I'm doing now. People even think I'm crazy that I love travel. I love airports. I love everything about them. I love people watching. I am insane. I don't even get mad when things are delayed, as long as I still make it to my speaking gig. But I'm not tired from traveling. I'm not
Yeah.
tired from speaking. I love reading books and adding new content to my presentations. I love all of it. What I miss is the fact that it's a solo sport, and I kind of miss
Yep.
a team, right? I miss sitting down with people and going, "Hey, here's a complex problem that just got dropped in our lap, and it's a literally a dumpster fire." And I miss sitting with people going, "Okay, best idea wins. Guys, how are we going to confront this? What are we going to do?" So I
Yeah.
miss that. I love what I'm doing, but there are certain things I miss. And so I sit down
Sure.
and I think about that. And then it just goes back to just sitting still and going, closing my eyes and envisioning which direction, which path, and really, truly envisioning playing it out in my head. And then whichever one I start to gravitate towards, my body knows. It's an intuition that we feel, and the universe unfolds, and it's like a little magnet, right? It
Yep.
takes you right where you need to go. And it's
Yep.
it's crazy, but it's like you know the answer.
Right. And then there's this thing that people do is they put the barrier. Well, what would they think? Who who's they? You know who your they is.
So
I
much
know
power.
who the what?
Mhm. As you said, "Who is this they?" And I said, "And why do you give them so much power?"
Right. So then you just take a leap and say, okay, this is how it's going to go. We talk to executives all the time, right? You and I, and so there's this emergence in this hierarchy, right? So in policing, there's a hierarchy, there's rank structure. In any organization, there's a kind of a rank structure, right? And so we talk a lot about how there's a point as a middle manager where you're handling more and addressing more dilemmas than problems. And somebody said, "Well, what do you mean? We deal with problems." I said, "Well, problems kind of offer there's an easy solution. There's like you do this or that."
Yeah.
And that's the purview of like a first line supervisor. As a middle manager and then as an executive, you're dealing with more dilemmas. And dilemmas argue that it's a series of trade-offs, a series of options and pathways to take to handle this issue, each with its unique set of stakeholders and unique communication and unique considerations and how we kind of consider all of the ways that this issue could kind of unfold. And that's where inviting diverse inputs to tackle the problem, I said problem, tackle the issue is really important. And I
Yeah.
can't help but think that at a certain point in life, what we have is dilemmas.
Yeah.
Problems are for chumps. Problems
Mhm.
are for total chumps. There
Yeah.
are an array of considerations that don't happen. It's easier when you're younger. It's just like, okay, you do this or that. And in a hierarchy as a first line supervisor, you do this or that. There's an advancement and kind of a broadening when you get later in life and when you kind of ascend into middle management and then to command and executive levels. Have
Mm.
you found that to be true?
Oh, for sure. And not only that, but when you're talking about solving complex dilemmas, as you call them, as we mentioned earlier, you're often choosing between, a few rights. But
Yeah.
yet then you have the manifestation of that, complex, depending on which, what path you choose to, attempt to, add a solution to this, bringing people in. But then you still have to understand it's going to be a ripple effect, and whatever you
Yeah,
decide is going to affect the organization and humans. And, and that to me is, I think, the hardest part. The higher you move up is that you are affecting so many people with the
totally.
decisions that you make. And it's great to get input. And I believe, I've always said, that was my mantra at the Aurora Police Department, and it will continue to be, is the best idea wins, no matter who it comes from. It
Right,
really is down decision making to say, hey, listen, just because I'm at the top of this organization does not make me the
right.
smartest. In fact, I'm often not the smartest in the room. And so it's getting, eliciting feedback, but then with the understanding that no matter what decision you make, sometimes it's going to disappoint people, or it's going to have an effect. And I think that's the thing that leaders maybe lose sight of so much, when it's like sometimes the solution is so clear, but then we don't think through, how it affects people. And we always have to put people first. It should be
Sure.
people and process, but people matter the most.
Sure. It takes us right back to your freeloading tour.
Yeah.
Takes us right back to home, sister. Right?
I,
I was talking with the deputy today. We've got this homeless kind of encampment. It's a road. We have over 100 RVs on this road, and 80 something people that are unhoused, that are living out on this road. And we have this whole countywide effort. And he's talking about his frustrations and how enforcement's one piece. He's a compassionate, incredibly professional, compassionate dude. And I found myself, when he's talking about this, reminding him that that Health and Human Services has a different construct in which they view the issues. Public Works has a different construct in which they view the issues. We hold people accountable to the rule of law and all of these things. And I told him, he was expressing frustrations about the advancement of this. And I said, Plato offered that if the masons and the cobblers fail, that is one thing. But if the guardians fail, democracy crumbles. And I
mm,
said, we cannot step away from being the guardians and holding people accountable to the rule of law. It is not disassociated with compassion and humanity to hold people accountable. And in fact, many of the folks would be served by getting into the system and connecting them holistically with the services that are out there for them, and at the same time restore some kind of humanity and some order to the county overall. We have a responsibility to safeguard people, to insert humanity, treat people with dignity and respect. And that doesn't mean that we just throw the law out and hug everybody.
yeah.
And so you have a real necessity. I urged him, and this was this morning before we got on this call, to remind yourself that your work is important, it is necessary for overall democracy, and it is not devoid of humanity to hold people accountable to the rule of law. And
Yeah.
so it's people. I can't hug people in the workplace, right? But I want to hug them and say, you got this. You got this, man. Get in the game, champ. You got it. And
Well,
uh,
and here's what people miss in that, is that level of accountability you just talked about. I was just in
yeah.
Chicago over the weekend, and there is an interim chief, an interim superintendent in Chicago, and there was some havoc that was wreaking over
Mm,
the weekend. And the interim superintendent, where in the past they've told me that they were advised to basically step away, and he said the way that we handle this is we have to basically lead with courage, and we have to hold
yes.
people accountable. And that means zero tolerance, because people don't realize that accountability is part of tough love, and that's what it is. And they said that once they decided to have this zero tolerance with human dignity and respect, it had positive outcomes, because the behavior ceased. And even though there was, accountability involved, it was best for everyone. No one was harmed. And that to me is a great outcome.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't
Yeah.
overlook how accountability, feeds into, courage and love. And
Without a doubt.
it feels like it's missing sometimes, where it's like we think that we can't hold people accountable, but it's honestly, it's necessary, you know?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good launching point for us to explore on our next podcast. I would like to offer that the Oakland chapter of the NAACP wrote an open letter that really spoke to this issue, spoke to a number of issues that I think we talk about broadly, and our role as leaders and our role in the greater good. So I'll send that your way, Kristen, and we can have a talk about that. I think it was compelling and interesting. Certainly will energize some folks and inspire others. So let's make sure that we talk about that on our next podcast. I think it's a really good opportunity for us to say, okay, so we took a little minute. You went on the
Mhm.
freeloader tour. I don't know. I'm not feeling like a shirt from the freeloader tour.
Okay.
Maybe, may,
Maybe a month. Yeah, something.
Yeah, there's got to be something.
Month
It's really your connecting tour and out of the humidity of Florida to go to Illinois and connect with your people, to be active, to question, to be still as much as you
Mhm.
could. And so what came up for me in this as a lesson is it is okay to make a tour and rounds and connect with your people. And the effort that you make every day, Kristen Seaman, to go out of your way for your people is remarkable.
Mm.
And that is what keeps you connected. And I would argue that's what you do as a leader. That's what we do as leaders. We step into the space to connect with people, whatever that looks like. And that's a big, big deal.
Yeah, for sure. And challenging ourselves all the while, right? I mean, making sure that we're not staying too quietly in our comfort zone, that we're, making sure that we're, completely just raising the stakes personally
Yep.
as well, because that's what will elevate our
Yeah.
organization and our people. So that's what matters. So quickly, as part of my, I love that you called it a connecting tour. So I may have to change my vernacular,
Do it,
but
girl.
as part of my tour, people had asked me where we've been, where's your podcast? So I have had to explain.
Right?
So I want you to know that was like of our million listeners, people seem to notice that we were gone. And
Yeah.
in person on my connecting tour, I was staying at her house, and she said, "So I'm just a little confused though. Why do you guys call it the Hollow Bunny podcast?" And I said, "Oh, so this is for Kelly, and for those who maybe tuned
All
in
right,
late."
Kelly. Click, click,
Yes,
click.
this is
Kelly. Hmm.
the hollow bunny. It's a metaphor. It's
Hmm.
we Phil and I were talking a while back, and we were discussing some leaders who only have a title or a formal position, but they don't really have a lot of substance or integrity. Maybe they're just checking a box for a resume. And so it's kind of like an empty suit, right? And then she said, she goes, but I don't get the bunny part. And I said, well, Sylvia Moyer was the one that it gave me the metaphor of the hollow bunny. And so describe for our listeners who may have tuned in later and don't understand what the hollow bunny metaphor is.
All right. So we all know we've seen it on the shelves of our local store around Easter time. There's the beautiful package. There is the foil, and inside that foil at Easter time is a chocolate bunny. It's got the delicious little tie. It's got the beautiful package, the sparkle. You were aspirational. I really want to buy that bunny. We pull it off the shelf. We're super stoked. We carefully open the package. Well, some of us do. We open the package, we pull off the foil, and I, as a lady, uh, pull off an ear. You pull off what?
I bite the butt. I
You
do.
bite the butt. So
Mm-hmm.
Kristen's a butt biter. I pull off the ear and I eat that bunny, but I look inside and it's hollow. And Kelly, what it means is like we're all excited about what this bunny is going to be, how it's going to fill us, what it means, how it's going to advance our life and improve our life. And we're going to be really satisfied. And we unwrap that damn bunny. We bite into its butt or its ear or its whatever. We find out that it's hollow. It doesn't have much substance. The chocolate is shit and sticks to your teeth, and it's not very satisfying.
Yeah.
So we're like,
Okay.
come
Okay.
on, Kelly.
There you have it, Kelly. That is the hollow bunny. So I just a quick reminder. That's what that was all about. The Hollow Bunny podcast. The
Yeah,
first.
so what we talk about is if we are going to have the present to be on the shelf, to be in the nice package, to be in the foil with the cute little bow tie, we're actually going to have some substance. So when people bite into us, they are going to feel energized, inspired, thoughtful, active, flexible, agile, courageous. They're going to feel all those things because we are going to influence strategy and policy and culture and climate. And we're going to really lead in a way that I always say hope is not a strategy. It's not going to be empty. It's going to be full of those things that make the environment better individually and collectively. So Kelly, when you snap off the ear of Kristen Zeman, you bite into the butt of Kristen Zeman, you'll see this delicious confetti and this nougat. I'm not even sure what nougat is, but fuck it, it works for now.
It's
So it's
new.
going to be nougat. It's going to be something.
Okay. Well, thank you for that education. And Sylvia, as we wrap this up, I just want you to know today and always, you're always filling my bunny with substance. I learned so much from you. So thank
And
you.
what?
And
Wait, before you do the conclusion,
okay.
August is your birthday month. So this is a big month where
Yes.
every human being should look at the bright orb in the sky, that the sunshine, and say, "You go, Kristen Zeman. It's your birthday month." And amazing people in my life, my nieces, birthday month, August, it's a big month. You fill our soul. Like I said, your sunshine and like human skin. I'd like to just squeeze you and you make life better, you full bunny. So now you
Oh,
can do the whole Jake Zeman thing.
all right. I love you hard. Well, this podcast is produced by Ted Madden, and the song that you are about to hear is written and performed exclusively for our podcast by my handsome and talented son, Jake Zeman, and his friends, Fabian and Zoe. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like,
Do it.
review, tell everyone. If you don't, just keep your mouth shut, just move along. And listen to all of our bunnies. Keep filling your own bunnies with substance, and please keep adding substance to others. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you've lost your why, have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny. When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all. And I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger. Failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave monster